Vanakkam. Welcome to this course on classics in neuroscience. Starting this week, we will be looking at classic Nobel Prize winning works of about 10 scientists. In this series of small snippets of videos, we will be looking at the classic Nobel Prize winning works of Santiago Ramon y Cajal. The name Cajal is spelled C-A-J-A-L but is pronounced Cajal. Cajal, that is how it is pronounced. It's Spanish name. So, his major contributions were to understand the central nervous system and the brain at a cellular level, and how his contributions and discoveries practically revolutionized the broad field of neuroscience. So, his contributions went on to earn him the 1906 Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine. In today's class, we will be looking at the personal background and timeline of Santiago Ramon y Cajal, and how Santiago Ramon y Cajal was a true titan, a giant, a behemoth in the history of science in general and neuroscience in particular, practically a national hero for Spain as a country and Spanish science as a discipline and field. Famously, Charles Sherrington, another Nobel Prize winner, called Cajal as the peasant genius. This was because of the rural background that Cajal originated from. We will discuss that in this class, and the particular anecdote between Sherrington and Cajal I will discuss in a future video. So, this is the photo of Santiago Ramon y Cajal. So, Santiago Ramon y Cajal was born in 1852 in Petilla de Aragon in Spain. This is part of the northeastern highlands of Spain. Practically his village had about 200 people, that was the population of his village. So, it is a really small place. He lived till 1934, and in 1934 in October on the 17th he passed away. He was a Spanish neuroscientist. Technically he was a qualified physician, pathologist, histologist and a teacher professor. Cajal was from the beginning very keen and interested in pursuing a career in the arts. He was interested in arts, he was interested in observing nature, he was interested in reproducing nature in his canvas. These are the things that interested him. His father was a strict disciplinarian. His father was someone who went from a very low level of education to become a doctor. So, Cajal's father wanted Cajal to pursue a career in medicine. Cajal had many disciplinary issues at school because he was not someone who liked rote learning, the regular approaches to memorization and learning. He was this free spirit who liked to learn using his own method of observation and natural inquisitiveness. Got him into lot of trouble in school, so much that he went on to say that la letra con sangre entra, meaning he had essentially meaning his education or his school period is something that can be written using blood approximately. That is what it means. I am not sure, because I am not someone who understands Spanish. But his approach and his natural inquisitiveness and his inspiring approach to observing nature really helped him to be super successful in his later years as a scientist, because most of the time he spent his time alone. He was alone looking at the microscope and making his observations, making his notes, and doing his drawings. This was Cajal for you. So it is unsurprising that the attitude that he had at school actually helped him become successful later on in life. But egged on by his father, he continued to study. So he studied at the University of Zaragoza, and he received the basic medical degree in 1873. And during the Cuban War with the Spanish people, he served in the Spanish military as a military doctor, and the money that he earned from that career during that period helped him buy a high quality microscope, because he was interested in observing what is happening in nature. So he bought a microscope just after his relief from the military, and in the military he contracted several infectious diseases that are common in the tropics, especially in an island nation like Cuba, and he had many difficult moments during his military career. It was not something that he would cherish or enjoy, and some of his illnesses continued to have long lasting consequences for him, which was one of the reasons that he made some choices that he had to make. In 1883, he became the professor of anatomy in Valencia in his third attempt. In the good old days, becoming a professor would mean that you have to take a sort of an interview, a very difficult debate based interview sort, which they call as something called oposición or something of that sort in Spanish in Spain. And because he was not someone who remembers facts, figures, numbers, he really had a hard time passing these interviews in the first two attempts. In the third attempt, he did pass, and he went on to become the professor of anatomy in Valencia. That was practically his first academic assignment. I mean, the first serious academic assignment was in Valencia, but in 1875 he was named the interim assistant of anatomy, Zaragoza, not on Zaragoza, in Zaragoza. In 1877 he graduated with a DM degree, doctorate of medicine, from Madrid. From 1883 to 1887, for 4 years he worked in Valencia, and in 1887 he started to work in Barcelona as professor of histology and pathology. In 1892 he took on the professor position at University of Madrid, and in 1900, by that time he was very famous for his theories. Hundreds of scientists were pursuing his approach to studying neurons and the brain at the cellular level by 1900. So in 1900 he became the director of National Institute of Hygiene and Institute of Biological Research in Madrid, and in 1900 he was awarded an international prize in Paris and Spain's Great Cross of the Isabel of the Catholic and Great Cross of Alfonso XII. When the Liberal Party, he was requested to be the education minister, he famously turned down the offer to become the education minister of Spain, because old school academic who had practically zero interest in politics, although he did have very strong opinions about education, in particular about education in Spain and how to improve the educational situation and the educational system in Spain, he himself preferred to focus his energy into his own studies and his own academic endeavors, and was not interested in taking up this political appointment or this education minister post. And in 1906 he was awarded the gold medal of Helmholtz by the Imperial Academy of Berlin, and in 1906 of course he won the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine. In 1920 King Alfonso III of Spain established the Cajal Institute in Madrid. Remember, at this time Cajal was alive. This was not a posthumous celebration of his successes, but rather Cajal Institute was formed and instituted when Cajal was alive. Such was his greatness, such was his stature in the field. Practically, Cajal is known as the father of modern neuroscience. His major contribution is the establishment of the neuron doctrine, providing the strongest evidence that neurons are indeed individual, independent, separate cells. Note that Spain in the 19th century was quite unlike the rest of Europe, rest of Western Europe. For example, you cannot compare the Spanish science with French science or German science for that matter. Of course, definitely not the British science. He was essentially in a country that was famous for being laid back, for being relaxed, because Spain after all was the country of the sun where you just relax, take it easy. What Cajal mentioned about doing research in Spain is, to do research in Spain is to cry. So, essentially making his contributions and his achievements way much more valuable, for example, when compared with the other Nobel laureates, for example, when compared with the achievements of say Charles Sherrington, who was a British neurophysiologist who also won the Nobel Prize, but then he was a British neurophysiologist. He actually had a fantastic background and systemic support. Cajal never enjoyed any of that. Cajal was working uphill all his life, or at least until his Nobel Prize, much of the time investing his own personal hard earned money into his own research. How many of us would do that? I mean, which is why he said to do research in Spain is to cry, making his contributions and his accomplishments somewhat heroic in some of the hardest ambience and environments to pursue science. A few years before Cajal became famous or took academic positions, famously Albert von Kolliker, famous anatomist histologist, visited the Museum of Natural Sciences in Madrid, where they had a microscope that they had bought from Paris, and he found that the microscope was practically in its mahogany box. Kolliker was not too shocked or not particularly surprised, but was disappointed about the state of science in Spain, and was not a big fan of Spanish science or people who do science in Spain. This part we will come back to in a later discussion, in a later video, because how Kolliker's opinion about Spain changed later just because of Cajal is something that we will discuss in a future video. So, with this we come to the end of this video. In this video we looked at the personal life or personal background and the professional timeline of Santiago Ramon y Cajal, and how his contributions made him a behemoth, a titan, a true giant in the history of science in general, and in the history of neuroscience in particular, and a national hero of Spain and Spanish science. Because of his rural background and his work in Spain, which was one of the most challenging environments to do science, he was dubbed as the peasant genius by none other than Charles Sherrington, another Nobel laureate. With this, we come to the end of this video. Thank you for your attention.